Hello. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to Thai team and the Metrics Forum team for providing me this opportunity to walk through some of the insights into wearable technology. Thanks. Is the deck on, please? Okay. Yeah. So I'll be touching upon what is a quantified self and how wearables are transforming the space now. Next slide, please. Sorry. Okay. So I think already I've been introduced, so let me move on to the next one. Yeah, quantified self primarily refers to this phenomena, right? Like what we talk about. How do we measure ourselves today? So earlier there were no easy ways. So now self-tracking tools and devices which will help us to know about our own numbers. So that is what is quantified self. And we know major players like Fitbit, Apple Watch, etc., who have come into the play and made this quantified self into a reality where we are all able to measure ourselves, whether we are how healthy we are, how many steps we are walking, what has been our heart rate, how much sleep have we had. So many parameters we are able to measure today. So I just want to touch upon a talk by Dr. Devi Shetty, who is a well-known cardiologist and very insights way back. So what did he say? He said that technology is no substitute to doctors, but technology will augment and support and ensure better efficiency in the healthcare. And he did say that medical designs are shrinking, and therefore wearables can transform healthcare into a meaningful and affordable and accessible. So, and that is what is happening now. And earlier we have seen high incidences of heart attacks, especially in the morning, where because there was no early signal, so a lot of lives were lost. So, my own younger brother passed away that way. So we know the benefits of having a continuous monitoring and early warning systems, how much they can do. And again, India is very well placed because with our capable engineering team and big medical fraternity and working together, we can really come up with the right solutions in the wearable technology. So this is a paradigm shift, right? So earlier, how were the treatments being given? It was symptomatic treatment. Only when we feel a pain, we feel a cold, running nose, we go to the doctor, right? We get ourselves tested. And that was the whole system. So now this is a new method where it's all data-driven. So predictive and preventive health is very much possible. And we can use telehealth technology for remotely getting support. And these can also result, we're already seeing, right? So there's a lot of motivation to keep ourselves healthy. So insurance companies are coming forward and saying, hey, if you walk 10,000 steps every day, so there is some discount on the insurance, for example. So because they know that such users would be less prone to diseases and ailments. So this is how data-driven initiatives are coming up in this space. So if you see the market size, the wearable technology per se is growing, and maybe today at about 150 billion, and it is going to grow to nearly 400 billion by 2030. And of course, wearables does not always encompass only medical devices, right? So there are other devices which are there, which are consumer-driven, which could be for the enterprise, etc. So it's a combination, but the medical segment is also substantial. Maybe about 30 to 40% of the devices would be in the medical industry. So again, wearables and non-invasive, are you can say very close terms, because we don't want to have an invasive measurement that's always painful, that's always cannot be a continuous monitoring, and therefore the wearables and contain non-invasive measurement techniques. What are the typical monitoring devices. So we have, of course, thermometers we have seen for many years and ages, to heart rate monitors. It could be activity monitors, spirometers, respiratory rate, EDA monitors, etc. And similarly, sleep tracking devices, actigraphs, etc. Then neuromonitoring devices like EEGs, electromyographs. And of course, we're talking about monitoring devices. At the same time, there are wearables which are coming up which are therapeutic devices as well. So this is the overall, you can say, the spectrum of the non-invasive measurements. And if you really see, there are various kinds of sensors. So PPG is a very common sensor, photoplethysmogram, and by which the core information which we derive out of it can be adapted into various algorithms and analysis with various sensors or colors and so on to measure or parameters like heart rate, SpO2, and so on. And on the other side, ECG, EDA are possible. So on the right side, you see a typical diagram. Earlier, it used to be, if we go to Chennai Thanga Maligai, you would see ladies having various ornaments and various parts. So now our wearables are also reaching there, and that is why the fashion companies, the jewelry companies are all competing to be in this space as well, in having sensors and wearables on the torso, on the ankle, on the forehead and earlobe, and so on. Yeah. Okay. So now I'll just switch a bit about, because I think when we are talking about designing wearables, especially for the medical industry, so there is really need to be, the regulation is very important, because as it is the medical, the patients are prone to further, risks in case they are not properly, they are not using regulated devices. However, that does not mean that all wearable devices need to be regulated. If they are just used for general wellness and in maintaining, general health activity and alerting on chronic impact, so then they are not considered as medical devices, and they come under the regular category of electronic devices, and they go through those regulatory compliance, not related to medical. So when we are looking at product specification, we want to see what is our intended use. And many times you don't need to go through the medical regulatory as well. So that's an important aspect. And then any device which is really used for, intended to be for diagnosis or for curative purposes, that is what comes under the category of FDA approval. FDA in the US, but very similar guidelines are there across the world with various countries like the EU MDR for the European Union, the Indian CDSCO, and many other equivalents in the other countries. So the way, I'm just going to delve a bit about the FDA regulation so that you get a insight into how the approval process happens, right? So, yeah. So ultimately, the classifications of the devices are 3 types. Class 1 is general. Class 2 is a little more complex. Class 3 is, much more, intense in terms of certification and compliance. So most of the devices you could see, what we develop would come under Class 2, which is also called pre-market notification, or PMN 510K. I'll just touch upon what is this 510K. 510K is a submission we need to make when we have a device ready for deployment or ready for implementation. So how does it differ? So if we submit a 510K, we also try to refer to a predicate device. A predicate device is already what is legally marketed and it is already being sold. So which means there is already a pre-certified device which you are trying to, specification-wise or function-wise, you are trying to, implement in your device. So that is what is a predicate device. And if you have a predicate device, then you can submit for 510K, of course, with all the documentation to prove that, yes, it is a predicate, it is equivalent to the predicate device. So, and what is the process of development, right? So this development process is initiation. So this is an important aspect where we understand the opportunity Okay, that means what is the business opportunity, and also we do the risk analysis at that time. That is very important. So we cannot, go into the other steps before realizing, okay, hey, I'm going to develop a medical device, and what is the risks involved, what the users would get, the risks which will associated with that, and how I am going to address them has to be at the top of the mind. So that is a major paradigm shift from designing a commercial electronic product to a medical device product. So the risk analysis and the mitigation is something which we have to start from the definition. And that is why we cannot create a product and then see how we can attach it to a medical environment. That would be very difficult, right? So then formulation, that means that is where we do a POC and a feasibility analysis, then the details of design and development, and final validation, and the launch. So these are the various steps which we need to go through. And a very important element in all this is what we call as QA/RA or a CARA. And that is the overarching, oversight to the entire development process. So the quality assurance and regulatory affairs. So this is very important to be monitored across the entire stages of development. So there is a design control standards, FDA 21, CFR 820, so which defines how you need to design, what documentation you need to maintain in order to before submission to the FDA. Similarly, ISO 13485 is an equivalent where for EU, and also now we say for the Indian products as well, we need to have a proper quality management system to develop a product. That is on the process side. Similarly, on the technology side, IEC 60601 is a standard which talks about how our device is designed to be protected against electric shock hazards, mechanical hazards. It could be, a sharp edge in our design, right? So that can be hazardous, or it could be a material which is allergic to the users. So all of those aspects are to be considered when we do the development of the product. And similarly, on the software side, we got to take care. We should have software which is reliable and robust. And again, there are classifications like whether the device is injurious, potential injuries there, or potential death scene scenarios are there, and accordingly, the software has to be developed to that level. And a couple of case studies quickly, where we have contributed at Technosphere to design a safety wearable for the workers, which has helped in maintaining and de-risking people who are in very difficult work conditions like a steel plant, to be able to be alerted if they are not at the fit of their health, to be pulled out of their jobs. So very effective, about 3 years already, about 8,000 workers wearing it every day. And respiratory baby monitor, which is helping to monitor babies to avoid sudden infant death syndrome. In the US especially, it's very common that they care for that. We have developed a patch for that product. And I just want to touch upon the ecosystem, right? So if somebody is developing a electronic product, for medical, so it has to go through the 5 stages I mentioned. And for each of them, there is an ecosystem available, right, in Bangalore or in and around Bangalore and India, where you can have people who will help you with the IDH, that means an independent design house like ours, where we could help in designing the product, or a mechanical design, industrial design. So we have capable partners for that. And similarly, test labs, where we need to execute all the detailed testing. And similarly, EMS for manufacturing and the support as well. So very well established ecosystem, and the core, a startup company can focus on their core and leave it to the specialists for the actual implementation. And similarly, a lot of QARA consultants are available, so who can help in the entire process and program management as well. So if you're starting a new medtech device development, right? So you need to do and don'ts. Just I have my own thoughts based on various projects which you executed. Market study, confidence, and risk assessment is important. And formulation, POC with the right parts. People tend to do it with makers product like Arduino. that will mean that you may take that step, but you may have to go back and again restart the whole thing. So it's not very it won't be a nice flow. Similarly, the process has to be followed for design and development, and clinical trials, etc., have to be robust, and launch as well. So whatever launch also, we need to have all the traceability, have a good manufacturing partner. So these are the things which would help in making a great end product. Thank you. Okay. So thanks for listening to me.